Mr. Mike's World. Don't mind me, I'm just taking a stroll on memory lane. Doesn't really make sense, does it? So now we are talking about the ancient Greeks, and we're going to start with section 1, talking about the geography of the ancient Greek civilization. So Greek people lived on rocky land with lots of mountains, which had water all around it, and the mountains, they go all the way to the water. Now, Greece is surrounded by water on 3 of its 4 sides, and there are these little pieces of land that stick out into the water, and then plus they have a bunch of islands. Now, because there are mountains all over Greece, there wasn't much area to farm, so people would go down into the valleys between the mountains, and that's where they would farm. So there were mountains all around all of the places where people lived, and because of this, the Greek people did not really get to know other communities on the other side of the mountains, so they just saw themselves as separate countries, basically. Another thing is that they usually traveled by ships on the sea because traveling on the mountains was so difficult. And to the south, they had the Mediterranean Sea. To the west, they had the Ionian Sea. And to the east, they had the Aegean Sea. And the sea was also how they got their food. Now, 2 early cultures that settled in Greece were the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. The Minoans were settled on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean. The Mycenaeans settled in the mainland of Greece. So the Minoans lived on an island, and because of this, they spent a lot of time on the sea. They became great at building ships, and so they also became great at trading. The only problem was that there was a huge volcano right next to Crete, and when it erupted, a giant wave buried Crete in water, and this is probably what ended the Minoan civilization. Now, the first people to speak the Greek language were the Mycenaeans. They built fortresses all over the Greek mainland, and they eventually took over Crete and became very powerful traders. They would often trade with a country and attack them, but the society fell apart when invaders from Europe came into Greece, and also some earthquakes happened and people started fighting a lot more with each other. Now, pages 232 through 233, they talk about Greek city-states and Greek colonies. So if you want, you can skim over that right now. Otherwise, we'll talk about it in class. So in section 2, we are talking about the government in Greece. Woo-hoo! Now, Greece started the first democracy, which is a type of government in which people rule themselves. It literally means rule of the people. The city of Athens started a kind of democracy. They started a government where only a few people ruled, and these people were called aristocrats or rich landowners. But before they started a democracy, the first government they started was called an oligarchy, which is a government in which only a few people, these aristocrats, have power. Now, the aristocrats were the richest people in town, and they ran almost everything, and the common people couldn't do much. Once, they tried to overthrow the aristocrats, and they lost. So a man named Draco set up a bunch of laws that were really, really strict, and the common people hated this. And so then a man named Solon, about 10 years later, changed the laws again. And under Solon's laws, every person who wasn't a slave in Athens became a citizen, which is a person who had the right to participate in the government. And so the people loved this. But it was a little too late. The people were still very upset, and they said, we want a new government. So in 546, a man named Pisistratus became the ruler of Athens, and he was called a tyrant. A tyrant is a leader who held power through the use of force. Back then, this wasn't really a bad thing. Usually people supported the tyrants, but the tyrants were the second form of government after oligarchies that the Athenians had. But this Pisistratus guy actually brought a lot of peace and wealth to Athens, and people loved him. But the aristocrats, they hated him because he took away their power. And so after he died, they took their power back. Now, next, the Grecians will start the third form of government, which is a democracy, and that'll be in pages 238 to 241, and we'll cover it in class. So if you want, you can skim over it right now. Otherwise, just keep going. So section 3 is about Greek literature and Greek art, and we'll go over pages 243 to 247 in class. So we're just going to skip over that right now. One of the most important Greek writers was called Homer, and Homer wrote epic poetry, which talks about great heroes. And another one was Sappho. Sappho wrote lyric poetry that was always read with a musical instrument in the background. Now, Greek literature still lives on. A lot of the things that they said back then, we still say today. For example, we call a long journey an Odyssey. And also, if something is big, we call it Titanic. The city of Athens, which is still alive today, was named after Athena, the goddess of wisdom. Europe was named after the princess Europa from Greek mythology. Hercules has been in many movies from Hollywood. Remember the Titans? The Titans were a Greek mythological people. And so in all of these areas, Greek mythology still lives on. And we are already done. We had a short video today because we're going over most of this chapter during class. But I hope this video will help you on your tests, and I hope that you'll watch it over and over. All right, see you in class.